She's a natural speaker. Oh, he's just naturally confident. Oh, I could never do that. One of the most damaging beliefs about communication is also one of the most common. The belief that great communicators are natural, they're born. You've heard it. Maybe you've even said it. She's a natural speaker. Oh, he's just naturally confident. Oh, I could never do that. And every time we say those things, we're usually making the same mistake. We're confusing what we see now with how it started. Because what we see now is the finished version. We don't see the years before that. We don't see the process. We don't see the awkward conversations. We don't see the failed presentations. We don't see the moments where somebody forgot what they wanted to say. We don't see the nerves, the self-doubt, the mistakes. We see the final version. And then we call it talent and being natural. Think about almost every communicator you admire, a speaker, a podcast host, a leader. When you watch them today, they look very comfortable in that particular setting. They're natural, they're relaxed, they know what they have to say, and speaking for them is effortless. But what you're seeing is usually not the beginning of the story. You see the result of repetition, of thousands of conversations, decisions, moments where they had to speak despite feeling uncomfortable. One of the biggest shifts in my own thinking happened when I stopped asking, how do I become a natural speaker, and start asking, what did this person practice long enough that they now look natural when they're speaking? Because that's usually the answer. Natural is often trained, rehearsed. Natural is often repeated hundreds of times until that repetition becomes invisible. The strange thing is that the better somebody gets, the less effort you can see. And that's why talent is such a misleading word, because talent focuses on the result. Practice explains the process, and the process is where growth actually happens. I think this is why so many people give up too early. They compare their beginning to somebody else's middle or end, or somebody else's 10th year. And they stand to speak, they feel nervous, they lose their train of thought, they stumble over a sentence, and they immediately think and conclude, this isn't for me. I'm not good at this. I'm just not a natural speaker. But this is what the process is supposed to feel like. What if awkwardness is not evidence that you're failing? What if awkwardness is evidence that you're learning? Nobody expects to know a foreign language naturally, and nobody expects to drive a car naturally. And yet we expect communication to be different. We expect to have confidence before the experience, and we expect fluency before repetition, comfort before practice. And when those things don't happen immediately, we assume something is wrong with us. But maybe nothing is wrong. Maybe you're simply where everyone started. Because the people we admire were not born as the people we admire. They became those people. One conversation at a time, one presentation at a time, and one uncomfortable moment at a time. That's why I don't find the phrase natural speaker particularly useful anymore, because it hides the most important part of the story: the work, the process, the repetition, the courage, persistence, and willingness to keep going when you don't look impressive at all. And that's actually good news for most of us, because if communication were purely talent, there would be very little that could actually do this. But if communication is a skill, everything changes, because skills can be practiced, improved, trained. And the people who look natural today are often the people who practiced long enough that the skill became invisible. So next time you catch yourself saying, I could never do that, pause and ask yourself a different question. What has that person practiced long enough that they became so natural at this? Because what looks natural from the outside, it's often years of invisible work. And the people you admire don't sound natural because they were born that way. They sound natural because they're practiced long enough to forget they're practicing. So think about this next time. Steve Jobs practiced one of his most well-known speeches from 2007, the iPhone launch, 300 times. Martin Luther King, before he said his famous speech, I Have a Dream, gave over 2,000 speeches. So natural is just practiced long enough until that work becomes invisible.